Hi, my name is Daudi Mugabe and this is Business Mike episode 15. My guest today is Alex Auger. She's the founder of a British fresh juice company called Think Press. In this episode, Alex shares the struggles and jubilations of being a young entrepreneur. All this and more next on Business Mike. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today on Business Mike. Could you briefly tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Alex Auger and I'm the founder and managing director of a juice brand called Think Press. So we make fresh cold pressed juices and send them all over the UK.
Right. And are you basically only in the UK or do you have a presence outside the UK as well?
We have an online presence. So we are developing our website now, Think Press, so that it's sort of a hub for wellness and for people that are interested in well-being. So that has a reach, obviously, all over the world. But in terms of where we supply our products to, that's in the UK only because our products are very fresh. So we make fresh vegetable juice and that has a shelf life of about 4 days. So it's quite challenging to take that across international borders, but maybe one day.
Right. And do you have any business role models that inspired you to start this business?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of role models, the person that always comes to mind when I get asked this question is a guy called Marcus Anterby, who is the founder and managing director of one of the biggest juice companies in the States, which is Juice Press. And that company has always stuck to very similar principles to us. So they will not use any form of shelf life extending process. And they just make fresh juice. And there's a lot of regulation in the US that says that people can't have fresh juice. It's got to be pasteurized. But he's really defied that. And he's grown this huge successful business, which people absolutely love just by sticking to those principles. So definitely admire him. And if we get half as successful as Juice Press, we'll be very, very happy.
And how does fresh juice compare to the other packaged juices out there on the supermarkets? Is it doing well or are they competitive?
I would say that there's a huge difference between fresh juice and juice that you find in the supermarket. And the difference is that the freshness is there. So any supermarket juice normally will last anywhere between 3 weeks to 3 years, which means that there's been some process there that's destroyed some nutritional value. So the thing with our juice is that it's completely fresh. We make it on day one and it will arrive with some on day two. But people don't understand that has to cost more. So the main problem we face is that obviously our juice is more expensive than what you can get in the supermarket. But people don't understand that fresher is so much better.
And what inspired you basically to get into this juice business? Why not milk or anything else? Why juice?
A lot of people ask that and I always feel like I'm telling the same story, but I genuinely went into juice because I tried some amazing green juice when I was abroad. I was traveling in Indonesia and I tried this green juice. I'd never had proper green juice before and I was just totally blown away by the colour, the taste, how different it was to juice, and just thought, well, people are buying this and why are people buying it? And it was because it was good for them. And so just started making juice. And then, when you make something and people are buying it, then I think that if you've got an entrepreneurial aspect to your personality, then you see how that could be turned into a business. So it was from liking it, making it, selling it, and thinking there's got to be an opportunity here.
And you've got another company called the Juice Executive. What's the difference between the Juice Executive and Think Press?
So the Juice Executive was the company that I first started with. So the idea behind that was to make really lovely fresh juice and deliver that to businesses. So to get employers to engage in looking after their employees. A lot of people in the UK eat really, really badly at work. And juice seemed the perfect solution really to address that because it's so easy. It can be delivered to your desk. It's, a kilo of fresh vegetables and people are never going to get that at work. So the philosophy behind that was business orientated. But as I was growing that business, we had a huge amount of demand from individuals. We had demand from wholesale stockists that wanted to stock the juice. And so the branding from Juice Executive didn't fit as well as it should have done with our new market. So the Juice Executive now exists as our manufacturing company. So we have a manufacturing company which produces white label juices, so juice for other brands, and also for big corporations, whereas Think Press is our consumer-facing brand, and that's the real focus for us now, is to grow our brand, which is more than just about juice. We're starting with juice, but we've got bigger plans.
Right, and how old is Think Press?
Think Press has launched. The website goes live tomorrow, so it's very, very new. But the branding, we finished the branding about 2 months ago, so it's a new business. The way the business is structured is that Think Press is a trading name of the Juice Executive. So it's still the same company, but we're a trading name. So it's a trademark, and we'll be trading under that name to consumers. So it seems like a new business, but all of the recipes, all of the work has been going for about a year and a bit.
And as a business owner, are there any parts of a business that, or any roles of being a business owner that took you by surprise?
I think that initially it was just all such a learning curve. But I think what's taken me by surprise is when you build your team and you take people on board to support you and to work for you and work with you. I never really appreciated how much time you have to give people, and to build the best team you possibly can, you need to train them, you need to give them the best resources. And I think I underestimated how important it is and how difficult it is to put the right amount of time into your team. So that really took me by surprise. I remember on my first day with staff, it was in January, and I just had no idea what I was doing. And I was thinking, I've got these people to look after and I've got to give them things to do. And I just didn't know what to do. And now 6 months on, we've got a proper structure and we're building our team all the time. And it seems to come naturally. But 6 months ago, I was like a fish out of water.
Right. And sometimes that happens when you about start your business. You have a vision of it and everything looks shiny and all is well. But when you actually get down to doing it, you realize, whoa, this is a whole different game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everyone thinks running a business is glamorous, and all my friends think, oh, it must be so fun. You're going off and doing photo shoots and you're filming videos, and that is one aspect of the business, but it's probably about 1%, and the rest of it is the non-glamorous stuff, like sorting out, the bin collections, and what do we do with our waste, and dealing with electricity companies, and when everything goes wrong and you've got 3 broken machines, that really is not glamorous. I think when you work in manufacturing, you're constantly dealing with problems. So although we have got a brand, we're not a business that's just all about the brand. We are very much a producer. We are a manufacturer. And so we get all of the dirty work that comes with that, I think.
Right. And what's the process like from picking the fruits in the garden all the way to packing the bottles in a box?
The process that we use is very intensive. So we go from, sometimes our produce is harvested within 24 hours of being juiced. So we use a lot of Kent suppliers. So we're in the county of Kent in the UK, so in the south, which is one of the most arable counties. So we've got beautiful fresh produce. So we work with a supplier who sources local produce. They will deliver us the freshly picked produce in the mornings, about 7. Then it will be washed, it will be prepped. So things like carrots, we peel every single carrot to get the beautiful orange colour to come out. It's then put through one part of the juicer, which is a grinder, so it grinds it into a pulp. And then the second part is put into sort of silk bags, and then it's put under a huge amount of pressure in a hydraulic press. And from that, all of the juice and naturally occurring juice in the vegetables and the fruit will come through, and it's totally pulp free. It's liquid nutrients really, and that gets bottled straight away, put into a cold store, which we run about 0 degrees, and then by that afternoon, about 5 p.m, so around about now, we will be sending it out to our customers all over the country.
And what's the happiest moment you've had in your business?
I think the happiest moment really is we were nominated this year we're in the top 3 for the best Kent juice producer this 2015. And Kent, there are a lot of juice producers in Kent that have been around for a long time, and we are the only people that do vegetable juice. So we got to go to an award ceremony because we were in the top 3, and I took the team with me. And I think just being at that award ceremony amongst loads of very established, successful businesses, and everyone there works so hard, and to be recognised there for what we've achieved in less than a year, that was amazing. And it was really nice to have the team there. So that was probably the happiest moment, I would say.
Okay. And are there any mistakes that you've made in your business that perhaps we can learn from?
I've made a lot of mistakes in my short year in business. So I think the mistake that I made was that I didn't think enough about branding when I started, which is why we had the Juice Executive, and then we had to move quite quickly to a new brand. So I really underestimated the value of branding. I was always one of those people that said, yeah, if the product's good, people will buy it. And the truth is that they won't, and some people will. But the public are, especially in the UK, are so about their brands. And so my biggest mistake was not realising earlier that if you invest and commit to your brand, then you can't go too far wrong, providing you've got an excellent product. So I would say that was my biggest mistake so far.
Right. And how does someone like yourself brand your products? Because they come in a box. How does your product compare to, say, all the other types of juices? Is it in the color? Do you have to emphasize that it's fresh juice? How do you go about that?
Yeah, so I mean, the frustrating thing in the UK is that everyone in the UK thinks that fresh juice is, the orange juice that you can get in the supermarket, whereas generally that's very high in sugar. It may have been pasteurized. So we brand our products as freshly pressed, which means that they can't have a shelf life of more than a week. So we have to differentiate ourselves in terms of freshness. And we also just have to differentiate ourselves in terms of design. So we were really lucky to have the design team that used to work at Innocent Smoothies. They did our design work, which, they obviously got a huge amount of experience in the drinks industry. And that's really helped us to sort of position ourselves in a competitive industry, I would say.
And in an industry like yours, when it comes to getting client feedback to make your product perhaps better, what's the most effective way to do that?
I think with client feedback, the most important thing is just to talk to people directly. So you need to pick up the phone. You need to encourage negative feedback. Every time we do an event, we always say, please try it. Please be honest about what you think. Even if you absolutely hate it, we'd much rather know. And I think if you say that to people, they will be honest with you. So it's talking to real people. I think there's only a certain amount of feedback you can get through the internet. So it's definitely all about talking to real people of different ages, people that might not be your customer. You talk to them and what would make them become a customer. So it's interacting on a personal level because it's food, and food is a sociable thing, I think.
And in your opinion, what are the three most important things a business should have, and why?
I think, first of all, you do need drive to start a business and to run a business, and that it's not easy. And a business is kind of like a ship, isn't it? If there's no one there to steer it, then it's going to sink. So drive is really important. I think passion is important because in the times where it's really hard, you need to actually believe in the product you're making, and you need to be able to kind of overcome all the objections. So you need to be passionate, but I think you couldn't run a business without drive and passion. So they have to kind of exist together. And the last thing, I do think that you do need money to run a business. I think that if you can only go so far without getting the right funding, and there's lots of different ways to get funded. But if I hadn't been able to borrow the money to start this, then we wouldn't be where we are today. So I do think that it's a shame that access to finance is sometimes limited. But I think to grow a scale business, then finance and funding is really key to growth.
Are there any websites or perhaps organizations that you've interacted with that might be able to assist someone in the UK, for instance, to start a business, or in terms of advice?
Definitely. I think there's a huge amount of support at the moment from the current government for young businesses. So we initially approached the Kent Foundation, which is our local charity for young businesses and young entrepreneurs. And they pointed us in the right direction for Startup Britain, startup loans, Virgin loans. So there are sort of loans and grants available for startups. So it's worth looking at those. And then when you get a little bit more advanced, what we did is when we demonstrated that we were a high growth business, we were approached by the Growth Accelerator, which is a UK government initiative, which provides funding to help businesses accelerate their growth. So we got about £2,900 worth of funding to put into marketing and put into rebranding. And that was just because we're a growth business in the UK. So there are loads and loads and loads of opportunities out there, but sometimes it's just hard work to get them, I think.
Right. And for someone who wants to apply to any of those, any tips you can give them in terms of what they need to put in their business proposal?
I think that, in ours, the most important thing was to meet the people behind the people that were loaning you the money, or meet the people behind the schemes, because if they can see that you're a young person that's got drive, that's got ambition, and you've got a sensible business plan that's not, don't say that you're going to turn over 5 million in your first year, but if you're sensible and you say we might turn over 100,000 in our first year, then they're going to take you seriously. So I think you have to have a realistic business plan. I think you have to have some credibility. I think you need to know what you're talking about. You need to know how you're going to get there. But I would say, for me, it's always been the most important thing is to try and put a face to a name, meet people in real life. And then if they buy into you, then there's chances are they'll buy into your business.
Sometimes as business owners, we have to make very difficult decisions. For instance, I believe, in my opinion, my most difficult decision was actually starting this podcast. It wasn't easy because I had put everything on the line and risk failure. What about you? What was the hardest decision you've ever made?
I think in terms of hard decisions, I found that sometimes when you're young and inexperienced in business, you get pressured into working with people because everyone tells you that they're the best at what they do, and you should, you feel pressured to listen to experienced people. But you just have to work with people that understand you and want to drive your business as much as you do. So I think the hardest thing is, turning down massive opportunities just because of your gut feeling, if that makes sense. So it doesn't make rational sense, but sometimes you have to rule with your emotions, and that's sometimes quite hard because you feel like you've let yourself down, you feel like you've let the company down. But equally, if it's your gut feeling, you kind of have to go with that, I think.
And I agree 100%. And sometimes such decisions can either make or break the company. So it's really important to go with your gut feeling. I agree with that. Well, do you have any cool or remarkable stories that you've experienced during your entrepreneurial journey that maybe you can share with us?
There's been a few stories, definitely. I think I've been kind of stuck in the UK for the last year, so we haven't really had the opportunity to go wild abroad or go and see loads of interesting things. But we had 4 months spent when we were starting our facility here and building the factory. That was a pretty intense few months, and so the image of I'm only 5'2", and so it was me on a building site with 10 builders for about 4 months, and that was quite an entertaining process. And I was trying to run the site, which anyone watching would have found quite amusing. The only other story is probably how I started, and I started in the garage at my parents' house. So I used to get hundreds of kilos of vegetables delivered to my parents' garage, and the neighbours would be like, "What is she doing?" And all they could smell was the smell of fresh spinach and celery kind of being juiced frantically. And by the end of the 4 months, there's juice all over the walls, all over the floor, everywhere. And so it's not exactly remarkable, but I think I will always remember those days. So it's something to look back on, I suppose.
Well, I like comic book movies, and I'm going to put you in a situation. If you were to be the captain of a team, if the world was being attacked by aliens and you were asked to put together a superhero team of fruits and vegetables, which 5 would you pick?
That is a very interesting question that I've never been asked. I would say you'd have to pick beetroot, because beetroot is just so good for you, and it's full of antioxidants, and it's sort of a nutritional powerhouse. So beetroot, number 1. Spinach, full of iron, lots of chlorophyll, so spinach, number 2. I think probably something like, I'm trying to think of some other ingredients that we use. Not celery, because celery is a bit watery. Carrots would probably be on the team, sort of strong beta carotenes, they're very good for you. And then I've got 2 more to pick. Maybe something like a sweet potato. We'd use a little bit of sweet potato here, and that's quite an interesting one. So sweet potato. And then the last one that I would pick would probably be, it's a difficult choice. What would you pick? Can you pick the last one? What vegetables do you have in Uganda? Do you have any unusual ones?
We have the usual ones. Let me see. I would say a mango.
A mango, yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, we don't use mango here. Don't have enough of them fresh.
And if the tables were turned and you are the host of this particular podcast and I was your guest, what's the one question you'd ask me?
I think that obviously from interviewing so many entrepreneurs and business people, you will have probably a much better understanding of business and, the problems people face than most entrepreneurs will. So I would probably ask, if you were going to start a business, what would your business be?
Well, if I were to start, apart from what I'm doing now.
Yeah, apart from what you're doing now. So if you had to start a product-based business, so if you were selling like an object, like a pen or something, what product would you sell?
That's actually a very tough question. Let me see. I would probably sell, I'm really struggling here. Let me see. What would I really sell? I definitely would have to be something online.
Yeah.
Because then I can get great reach. I was actually just listening to a podcast by Seth Godin. It's called The Startup School. Have you heard of it?
I think I have, yeah.
It's just 15 episodes, and each one of those, he's basically taking some young entrepreneurs through the processes they need to go through in order to start a business.
Yeah.
And one of the things he mentioned was, if you want to have great scale, you need to have an online business. That way you can reach many people, and the product you sell has to be something that people don't necessarily need to touch or feel in order to appreciate it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he gave the example of Amazon, whereby they settled on a book because you don't need to touch or feel a book to buy it. So based on that and the current trends today, I would probably sell I don't know. I guess vouchers. I don't know. I'm thinking vouchers.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things. Like I would have a voucher business for each and every country, for the most demanded products in the particular markets.
Yeah.
So for anyone that's listening, what advice would you give to them, especially if there are people that perhaps wants to start a business?
I would say you need to do something that you believe in. You need to do something that you're excited about, because when you start a business, money doesn't even come into it when you're starting. You're not doing it for the money, even though you might grow it into something which is worth something. I would never have been able to carry on through like the more difficult times if I didn't get excited about the product. So I think you need to do something that you're genuinely excited about doing, and just enjoy it, I think. And that I think when I started, I was quite hard on myself, and every time you took a Saturday off, you feel really guilty. But actually, the reason you choose to run your own business is because you want to be in charge of your own life. So you want to be able to say, I'm happy to work all weekend, but then I can take next Wednesday off because I want to go and see a friend or something. So I think advice to people is, it doesn't have to be like, it's going to be hard, but it doesn't have to be 24-hour days and not getting any sleep. I think if you're enjoying it, then you're going to be more successful about what you do. So that would be my advice.
How do you wrestle with this? Sometimes I find myself struggling with this because you love the business so much and you end up working long hours, longer than even someone with a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So how do you break away from the business? How do you separate it from your personal life? Because especially if it's a business you own, the two end up becoming one, and you find it harder and harder not to work.
Yeah, no, I think they do. I think with what I do, I'm quite lucky because I live very close to where I work. So I have a rule that I will go home when the work is done. So sometimes that's really late, but I try not to do any work at home. So I try not to work at home. If I have to be at work, then I'll just come in to work on the weekends. So I very much physically separated work and home. So if I have to work on a Saturday, that's fine, but I have to come into work to do it rather than working from home. And I think it is difficult because all my friends are so bored now because all I ever talk about is juice and business, my plans, and they're excited to start with, and then after a while they're like, I've heard this before. But I think that you can never separate it because you've made that decision to build your own business, and then it's a massive part of your life. But I just think that I think it's so important to have fun and not talk about work. So I've done some sport recently. So I played for a team, and that's really good because no one there knows what I do for a job. So they have no idea. They've never asked. So I probably plan to never tell them what I do as a job. And so it's really nice to have that relief where no one knows what you do. No one's going to ask about work. And you can just get on and do some exercise, play some sport, and you get a clearer head.
Where can people find you, and how can they learn more about ThinkPress in terms of social media or our website?
So we've got a video that's just launched on YouTube. So if you search for ThinkPress on YouTube, we've got a video on there. Our social media, our Twitter is Twitter/think_foods. Our Facebook is /ThinkFoodsUK. And Instagram, which is our biggest social media platform, is ThinkFoodsUK. So just look up Think Foods, and then you should find us somewhere online.
Right. I must point out that by the time this goes live, your website will already be up. So what's the website?
So our website is thinkfoods.co.uk.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thank you for choosing us to interview. It's been really interesting.
And we wish you all the very best with ThinkPress.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to Business Mike today. And if you'd like to listen to more episodes just like this one, simply go to businessmike.com. For all the links and resources mentioned in this particular episode, simply type the name Alex into the search bar to access her show notes page. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take care.